So like after that, I still work. So on my free time, I reached out to Jennifer back in June.
We're good. Yeah.
But this delay has been saving for down payment and etc.
Oh, okay. So what?
You can minimize that, and your audio is up.
Okay, so there I was right. That's why they're signing off. There was no audio.
Yes.
Oh, after weeks and weeks, they finally hear me. Okay, good. All right. Well, you're brand new. You want to go out. You want to find a place, and you want to buy it for yourself. So there's some things you should consider when you negotiate. If you're buying the property yourself, in the multiple offer arena, as an agent buying a property for themselves, there's two options. One, you could offer them whatever the commission they were going to pay you. Like, for example, if they're going to pay you 3% commission, you can go in and say, well, I'm going to offer you 3% less on this purchase price because I'm waiving my commission. I'm not going to get any commission on this. You'll still make the same amount of money, and then you don't have to pay more on your mortgage because you just wiped out whatever $15,000. That's one. Another option you have is, though, if you're in a multiple offer situation, you're talking about escalating clause, how much am I going to escalate, and all that.
Yeah.
So, but you can still say, I'm waiving my commission, which is $15,000, and I'm still going to do my escalation clause, but just be aware, seller, that if there's another deal there the same as me, you're making $15,000 more with mine, even with the escalation clause, to sweeten the deal. You can do that. So those are two options you have.
Right.
Personally, if it's just you, I would just offer 3% less. If it's multiple, you might want to consider the other option. That makes sense?
Yeah, it does. So some new constructions, they obviously they go at the listing price right away. So they're a little more stringent so far from what we've seen. So the most amount that they're willing to offer just the closing cost, which obviously $5,000 to $7,500 to their estimate. Given that we work with their mortgage
their lender.
Yeah. So they're pretty tough on the stringent on their terms.
Well, it is a seller market, so yes, new construction builders are getting their price.
Sure, absolutely.
And yes, you can get into it without multiple offers sometimes, but there are multiple offers even in new construction, especially if they held off until it was completed.
Yeah.
That can happen. But even pre-sales can happen if it's a choice lot and all that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's hard to get closing costs paid by any seller right now, even on a resale, because if they have multiple offers, nobody's going to ask for closing costs at all.
Right.
If you need closing costs, but the seller says, well, I'm not going to pay it, and let's say for example, your closing costs are $5,000 and the purchase price is $600, you could go to them and say, well, fine, but we're going to pay you $600 and $5,000, and you're going to give us $5,000 closing costs. So they still get their $600.
Sure.
And then you've wrapped your closing costs into your loan, so you don't have to come up with it.
Oh, okay.
And that way they're not giving away any of their money. They're just helping you get into the house.
Sure.
So that's one way to do it.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah.
But yeah, builders, they're not going to do a lot other than what they have. It's just a seller's market. And as long as it's seller market's that way. When we had a buyer market back in 09 and 010, buyers, trust me, were running around and they were getting closing costs and repairs and all sorts of things out of those sellers. But now the sellers are having their heyday until the day it returns, and then guess what? Buyers are going to have their heyday again.
Hopefully.
Well, it's hard to do a buyer heyday as long as the inventories are low.
Yeah.
It's
I've
hard.
seen some of the news data now.
Yeah. But as a new agent, you should be already learning all your contracts.
So actually, I didn't know the format of the meeting, but this is especially helpful because Q&A. But as a brand new agent, I feel like I gotta read up on Word and stuff, Form 21 and
Yep.
the clauses and stuff.
Especially if you're in new construction, because you want to know these forms, what they do, because a builder, you're going to have two options. One, they're going to say, we're not using any of the MLS, you're going to just use our contract.
Yeah.
And their contract's going to cover a lot of what the MLS says, but you still need to understand what the MLS says, because if you understand those forms inside and out, then when you read the builders, you'll know what they're really saying. And if they are following the letter, or if they're doing something that's benefiting them. Because if someone said to me, oh, we have our own contract, first thing I would do if I was their lawyer is say, okay, let's find out what's written in here that protects them but doesn't protect you.
Right.
So you should get to know your forms.
Yeah.
And then the biggest thing, the forms you should learn first, because I've made videos of them. You would want to do Form 21, because that's residential.
Absolutely.
As you get more involved, you might do Form 28, because that's condos. Then you want 22A, your financing addendum, 22D. You want 22E. You want 22J, 22K. You need to understand 22T, Form 35, Form 35R, Form 35E. Oh, and yes, Form 31. I tell all agents, if you don't know those forms inside and out, you better learn them ASAP, because those are the forms you will use the most frequently.
Yeah.
And that's going to make or break you as an agent writing a contract.
Absolutely.
Because blindly writing a contract and not knowing why you're checking certain boxes or what strategies you should be thinking is a disservice to your client. And
Absolutely.
in your situation, you're buying for yourself, so you're your own client. So do you want to fire yourself and hire me? Because I'm happy to write it and get a commission really fast.
Yeah.
But I would prefer you learn it, and so you get it.
Absolutely.
But you need to watch them. And there are videos that I made on KW Connect.
Sure.
And they moved them. You know that, Robbie? How they moved
I
them?
just showed you. This is where they are now.
Well, yeah, you go to KW Connect, and then when KW Connect opens now, up in the right-hand corner should be
Your picture.
your
and then
picture.
Do a left click, my profile.
It says upload, and your picture's beside it. And so you go up there and you go down to community. We'll show you here, but this is for the listing on it.
So once.
Or I could show it too, I guess, on mine. Let me pull it up. I will show you how to find them. Everyone should get to know this, because this is the new KW Connect, and the old one's gone. So you're going to get lost if you don't know the new one. And actually, this one's going to be where they're taking it is really exciting.
Right.
All right.
we kind of take that internally. Is that how?
Well, we have our market intranet, but eventually the market intranet is going to go bye-bye, and the KW Connect will become our new market intranet, is what it's going to be.
Sure.
But for now, you would go to KW Connect, which you'd find under the education bar.
You're right.
And then when you're here, where it says upload, here's your icon. If you go over it, you go down to community and click. And now you're in here, and now it goes, here is the communities you can be a part of. Like, are you going to be a community? So you'll have, I'm in the downtown Seattle community because that's where my license is. It'll come up and say Kirkland East Side. I'll just say Kirkland 771. So that is our office ID number. That is your community. So you'll be able to click on it. It's in mine right now. And then you go in, and it's a bit confusing now because, like everything with KW when it first comes out, there's a few bugs. Well, what's going on here is we aren't able to create folders yet, but Mike Collins said soon we'll have the capability we can do a folder, so it'll be just contract videos, and we'll do other folders for other things, so it's easier to get through it.
Sure.
But for the time being, you just need to scroll through it, and as you do, you'll see that there's forms popping up, and that eventually you'll get to the other forms. Just
Yeah, that's fine.
click load more, and then you'll see here's all these forms I did videos. And so you can
Yeah,
find
that's
all
great.
the videos that I just mentioned
Great,
to watch.
yeah.
And then eventually you should probably go through and listen to all of them,
Yeah.
because the longest video is going to be like Form 21 and 28 because they're 6 pages. The
Right.
others are like 2 pages. They go a lot quicker, but I will teach you on them directly what all the paragraphs mean, what it is you need to check, and how to strategize. But as working with a builder, if let's say they just say none of these forms, but we're going to put in a normal contract, well, if you know like 22A inside and out, when you're reading their version of a financing addendum in their builder contract, you're going to be able to read it and understand it better and know the kind of protections you're trying to understand are in there,
Yeah.
like on 22A. So that's really important that all new agents need to be doing this
Absolutely.
immediately. And I'm amazed how many new agents don't look at contracts to learn them until they're actually writing their first contract. And then they're asking questions like, well, what forms do I use? Where do I check a box? What do I do?
Yeah.
And I just think, looking back on me as a new agent, well, that's just not me. I would never be able to do that. I can't write a contract for someone without any knowledge. So, you know, back in the dark ages, before videos and all this kind of stuff, I literally went to my broker, and he told me the main forms, and I went home and I printed them out,
Yeah.
and I just read them, and I just highlighted everything that didn't make sense, went in, sat down, and then he explained all those to me, and then I was fine.
Sure.
That's why we create the videos, so I don't have to sit down with you and explain it, but you can watch them, and they're pretty good. Everybody says they've been very, very helpful.
That's
So,
awesome. Yeah.
so if you do that, then you can read a builder addendum.
Yeah.
One thing on builder addendums that, first of all, people think, oh, we can't change anything on a builder addendum. Wrong. You're negotiating a contract. You can change anything if all parties agree. One thing builder addendums still have in their language a lot of times, it will say, you know, once you know the final date of closing and then that's agreed to and that's put into the contract, they'll have some paragraph in there saying that if the buyer doesn't close on time, the buyer's agreeing to pay blank dollars per day until they close. And I always cross that out. I've crossed that out forever. I've never had a builder contract where I left that in. And the argument I would say nowadays is it just doesn't add up because every time they add on another penalty for closing late, that means that changes the whole loan for the buyer because underwriters have to know everything. So if suddenly the next day the buyer owns another 100, and the next day the buyer owns another 100, it's not like years ago we could just sign an extension, say there's a penalty, and the lenders were like, fine, whatever it ends out, it'll be fine. It's not that way now. It's like you got to go back to the underwriters, and then the underwriters have to approve the additional amount to make sure your balances for debt to loan are not thrown off. And some people argue you can still do it. It's really hard. If you have a set dollar amount, great, but the seller still needs to understand that it takes time. The underwriters have to approve that we just changed my loan because suddenly I'm having to put more money down. Now, if they're just coming in putting more money down to make up the penalty, it's probably easy. But I'm certainly not going to argue it's easy with the seller. I'm just going to say it's going to push further back on closing. And on the builder addendum, I just cross it out. And usually somewhere in the builder addendum, it will say the builder can push closing back at any point up to 30 days if they're not ready to close because, you know, they got construction pushed back.
Right.
And so I always say to the builder, hey, you have a right to push back 30 days and we get no penalties payments. But you're telling me if we close 3 days late because the lender needs 3 days, we pay a penalty? I said, that's not right, and we're not going to do it, so we're going to cross that out. Is that okay? And the builders have never said no.
Yeah.
Of course, Paul Hermie might tell me over at Team Builders, and he might be going, yeah, rah, 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 I'm saying that'll never happen. But that's Paul and me. We'll talk it out later. But I mean, I've never coming in. So that's my advice on a builder addendum is look at that.
Sure.
Other thing you want to think about on builder addendum is look at everything they say about financing, because generally at some point they have in their language that one, they'll have language about use the preferred lender,
Yeah.
and maybe that lender will give you a rebate back.
Yeah.
Don't think that's going to be a great deal.
Right.
Generally not. I mean, agent recently was telling me this builder's preferred lender who happened to be Wells Fargo. Well, you know how I feel about Wells Fargo. If not, I would never work with them because they are horrible on loans. But they were saying, we're going to kick back, I think it was $10,000, but then
Yeah.
they had all this other stuff, and they had a higher rate than the agent knew she could get with her other lenders.
Yeah.
So my advice is they'll say they can't force you to use their lender. They'll suggest it and they'll offer this rebate. I would just take that and still get pre-approved with another lender, but then go back to your lender and say, if they're doing that, what are they doing that's costing me more? And if not, what's going to prevent me from going with them now unless you're going to do something nice like they're doing?
Sure. That's very helpful.
Yeah, I mean, you can play lenders that way.
Yeah.
But you need to read in there because they'll have in their language somewhere in the bill or addendum, you have so many days to get it all together.
Yeah.
And usually they have an automatic waiver of releasing your earnest money at some point in their addendum, usually on financing, saying after this date, your earnest money is no longer refundable at all, even if you can't close on your loan. So you want to be aware of that stuff to see if that works for you or not.
Yeah.
I can tell you any builder, if you go in and they're allowing upgrades, those builders will always make you write a check right now on top of your earnest money because and I agree with their attitude. If you want them to do an upgrade, they want all the money for that upgrade up front so that if you walk away from that house, they know those upgrades were paid for because they wouldn't have done those upgrades unless you wanted them.
That's smart.
Yeah. So those are things to watch out on a builder's addendum. Oh, and one more. Builders do not want you to put an inspection contingency in their contract. And the reason is it's new construction and they don't want you to suddenly say, oh, well, now it's done. You can bring your inspector in now. We just finished it 2 weeks before. And you say, oh, well, I'm not going to buy it now unless you do this, this, or this.
Right.
Or we're walking. So most builder addendums or builder contracts will just say 35E, or no, Form 35 is not allowed. But smart builders will also still have written in there, but if you still are welcome to have an inspector come through the house when we say it's ready for inspection to help you create a punch list.
Uh-huh.
And I truly recommend, if that language isn't in there, then I would definitely put a 34 in there saying that when the seller says the home is ready for an inspection, that they announce it and that the buyer can bring an inspector into the house to create a punch list. And that's all I've ever used as an inspector on with new construction. And yes, and builders say, well, it's all brand new and we'll walk you through the house and we'll identify any loose ends that we haven't addressed and all this. And that's great, but they're never going to go over that house like your inspector will. And you need to create a very good punch list. Otherwise, your client's going to get in there and go, well, wait a minute, these drawers don't slide correctly, or wait, the stove wasn't hooked up correctly. The inspector's going to find those things, and all those things are very minor repairs. And those are things you want to get done before you close really quickly, because once you close, getting repairs out of builders can still happen. The good ones will still take care of it. They all have written that, you can't hold closing back if all punch list items are not completed, because Sometimes they may have to replace a cabinet door or something. It's not in yet, so but they'll replace it once it gets in. So having a few of those things isn't the end of the world,
Yeah.
but it's hard once you get in, you start opening drawers and go, hey, this is sticking.
Yeah.
Well, that's what your inspector's doing. They're verifying all those things. And I can tell you, when you do a walkthrough with the builder, they're not opening every drawer. They're not going to put a little plug in your sockets to make sure that they're grounded correctly and all. Because little things like that can be, get missed with all the subcontractors. So most builders aren't worried if you want to bring an inspector in to do a punch list.
Yeah.
They just won't let you have a Form 35 that you can walk away.
Sure.
And then one more thing in new construction, everybody loves blue tape. But let's get real, folks. Not everything you blue tape is going to get touched up, painted. And you can go around all day you want on a floor and say there's a little scratch here, a little scratch here, and you think they're going to come in and buff and redo the floor? Maybe. Probably not. They're just going to take the tape up. Because they're just going to be, we've already done this floor. This is just normal wear and tear happening. Good builders, though, will hold off sometimes and not do the last coat on top of a wood floor and do that right before closing so it's all fresh and looks great. But so many people now are using wood floors that are pre-manufactured and they just install. They don't have to finish them and put the lacquer and all the various things on the wood. So anyway, I've had, and we all have them, and I certainly let my clients run all over and put little touch-up paint everywhere. And they'll touch-up paint the main problems and all, but I just don't tell them, well, they may not paint the entire house because you've taped every wall, But buyers love blue tape. That's all I can say. But you want to keep a very detailed punch list.
Yeah.
If you do get an inspection, and then you go through it and whatever your buyer wants, make sure you really identify item 1 and be very clear where it is, item 2 where it's clear, and if they have photos, I attach the photos with it so they can actually see what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
Because this punch list you create, they're just going to throw it over to the superintendent of that operation, who's then going to talk to some subs to get things done.
Yeah.
And if you just say, oh, fix dent in wall of bedroom,
right,
they're going to walk in the mirror and go, I don't see a dent, scratched, done. You got to say in the master bedroom, on the west wall, to the north side, and then I would tape a circle around it so it's very obvious.
Sure.
And you could even take a picture with your iPhone and attach that to it. So you want to make sure it's very clear explanation of what you want done. Other things, though, I do tell buyers is when we're looking and things that aren't going to happen, like if the inspector says things like, well, it's okay what it is, but, this should have been done a little better this way or whatever. They're not going to rip a wall and redo something for your guys. It's just not going to happen. They're not going to move walls. They're not probably going to rip down a fence and move it around. I mean, you got to be really clear what you want up front, because they're only coming in to do the last minute cosmetic things that weren't taken care of correctly.
Yeah, technically, they don't have to. Once closing happens, they don't have to do those repairs. Is that true?
Otherwise, there's a warranty.
Actually, read their addendum, because their addendums usually say all punch list items agreed to will be repaired, but some of them may not be done before closing.
Sure.
But that they will follow up and do it.
Okay.
Now, here's a big fallacy that agents are doing. People are thinking, well, all new construction, those builders are required to give a 1-year home warranty. They're not. Not true. Builders don't have to give you a warranty at all. There's nothing in the book saying these builders have to give you a warranty on their work.
Right.
And then sometimes agents will say, they'll put in comments, oh, builder to buy a home warranty for 1-year home warranty for buyer. Okay?
Yeah.
That's so open-ended. They can just go to the same places I go to and buy a $500 home warranty for what I do for on a resale. I do that for my buyers. Well, a $500 home warranty is covering a appliance repair, loosely covering some plumbing, heating, and some electrical, basically. It's not guaranteeing the structure and things like that. So if you write the builder's buying you a home warranty, I would suggest you talk to builders or agents who work with builders and find out a little detail from them as to where does everyone buy these home warranties that builders do that cover much, much more.
Yeah.
Because you want to be very detailed as to what kind of warranty you want them to buy you.
Sure.
Generally, the good builders, they all have a 1-year home warranty anyway.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Because the one we're currently looking at, the last one we just looked at, the BDR. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the information we found was like a 6-year warranty, which
that's great.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know.
I think it's when they get you extended warranties, like a 1-year warranty covers pretty much everything, and then when you go into the extended time periods, generally they're only going to cover certain structural issues.
Sure.
They're not going to cover everything.
Yeah.
But that's great if you get one that does more than a 1 year, because most just do a 1 year on them. So that's really good. But if you find someone who's like, no, we don't give any home warranties, I'm willing to bet that you're dealing with someone who's building like maybe 2 spec homes, probably hasn't been in the business a lot, and I would tell your client, you might want to really research this person. And you can do some research too. Yeah. But remember, if you say, let me research this builder and I'll get back to you if he's credible, you just took on the responsibility that you're an expert in knowing where to look and know how to find all the information. And if you don't find the information they want, they can come back and sue you and say, well, hey, there's all these lawsuits that were against this builder, and had I known all that, I would have never bought, and you didn't tell me that when you said, oh, I researched him and he's okay. So be careful what you take on in your relationship to your clients. I mean, I would say, hey, you need to research this. I'll look up and see what I get, but you need to research it, because I don't know if I'm going to cover everything you want in researching if you want to buy this builder or not. But if he's not given a home warranty, I think it's worthwhile to verify they are licensed and bonded. Yeah. Verify, are there any lawsuits pending against them? I would think, look up the builder and see what's out there in the Google.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard sometimes because builders will create a new LLC for every new construction project. Yeah. So sometimes it's hard to find a lot of information because of that. But you know why they do a new LLC for every project?
No, just change the name so
The reason they do an LLC for every project is that if your project happens to be the one that really is great and falls apart and they get in a huge lawsuit, well, you're only suing that LLC for those 2 buildings they built. You're not suing their company. So it's their way of protecting them. Not to say a lawyer can't punch through that and go after the company. Good lawyer probably would. But it's a maneuver to protect their assets, is what it is.
That's excellent.
Yeah. But another fallacy of new construction, and I can tell you people do all the time, and they'll say, oh, we don't need to do a sewer scope because it's brand new. Everything's new. Boy, that'll bite you. It bit me, and I bought new construction, and I was stupid. But I wouldn't say I was stupid. I naively, as a newer agent, went in and just said, yeah, I'm not going to bother with a sewer scope because it's new construction. Moved in, and I swear it was probably a month later, the sewer line, I knew I shared the sewer line with 5 other townhomes. Yeah. All our townhomes backed up into our toilets and our showers on the main floor, not upstairs, thank God. And sure enough, the sewer line that was out in the parking strip the sewer line went to the parking strip and then
Right.
stopped
Yeah.
because the rest of the sewer line was crushed. And that's because people think, oh, it's all new. Well, they'll put a sewer line in, but they're still going to have some heavy machinery on top of it as they build, pouring foundations and whatever.
Right.
So they crushed our sewer line.
But you were paying county for the sewers.
No,
right?
you're paying the builder. The builder put the sewer in. You as a homeowner are responsible for your sewer line from your home until it connects to the county line in the street.
Oh, wow.
The county has nothing to do with the install of your sewer line. That's the builder.
Really?
Yeah. But luckily, I'm a squeaky wheel. Sure enough, they didn't even question it. The builder came in and dug up our parking strip, and it was so bad they had to put in a brand new connection sewer line in, and they did it all like in a day. And then of course I made sure we had a cleaning service come through and do all these little extra things for us, because I was like, as I said, I'm a squeaky wheel and I'm an agent, and I can't believe you as a construction company were not aware of this, and I sure as hell will let every agent I know about it or be quiet. Yeah, that builder has passed on, but that builder was not a great builder. But I knew it going in, that he built on the cheap side, but the location I was fine because I figured I could replace things as I went along.
Yeah.
But, horror story, I'll share. I love horror stories. I was upstairs working one morning, and I think I'd lived there 3 months, and I came downstairs to get water, and it was one of those surreal moments where you come downstairs and it's raining in your living room, and you're standing there with your, filling your water, and you're like, it's wet, huh? And then you click, 10 seconds later, you're like, holy no, oh no. Yeah.
Wow.
And I definitely called the builder, who called the super, and they came over, and we shut the water off and did all that. They were lucky I was home, because I immediately threw towels. I saved the wood floors. I moved my furniture so it wasn't damaged really quick. But I had them. The builder brought in, of course, the sub for the plumbing, and the plumber came in and he goes, oh yeah, this is that project where we fired that guy for doing substandard work.
Right.
And I thought, I'm really good. I got a lot out of that. But no, and they had to literally rip out my ceiling. I learned so much about construction over the years. If ever this happens, make sure you demand that, they bring in a dehydrator to suck all the water out for a while before they put drywall up to prevent mold, which I did. But anyway, I got a new sink out of that.
Oh.
Because that builder wasn't going to give me the sink I wanted when we moved in.
Uh-huh.
But when that happened, I called up and I said, that sink that you don't want to do,
Yeah.
you're doing it. And again, I prefaced that, this is 3 months old, and I'm learning you had a bad sub who basically didn't solder the connections correctly, and the connection popped and the water started traveling and dripping through the ceiling to it just came out all over spots. Anyway, I got a new sink.
Nice.
Did I still talk about the builder? Yes, because I didn't like him. But he's no longer around. He's moved on. And my place is really good now because I've repaired and fixed everything up and upgraded everything, so it looks good. So I knew what I was getting into. But anyway, that's just some of the things to think about in new construction.
Sure. So some of them we've been looking at are, some of them are zoned as single family, but they still have a monthly fee over 100. Our concern, at least my concern, is the lenders I've talked to, at least two of them, they say if you have HOA, not HOA, but monthly, just in general, monthly fee over 100, they're not really single family homes. So that affects the interest rate of the core.
Well, my first thing is, are you buying into a community?
Probably.
If you're buying into a community, like a subdivision that they built, and there might be single-family homes, and there might be some townhomes, or it could be all single-family homes, and they're very common on the east side.
Yeah.
But they'll say we're not a condominium because, and the reason they're saying that is because you're buying it and you're getting a deed. You're just buying into a community that has a membership to be an owner. So you need to explain it differently to the lender, because if you're paying $100 a month, you need to research it, because they probably don't have resale certificates and things like that. Like a condo, they'll just say, oh no, here's a website, here's the rules for the community, and that $100 is just going to take care of parks that we built for kids, make sure the roads are in good condition, and take care of the entrance to our community.
Yeah, that's.
So I would go into the lender and say, no, this is residential. I'm just buying into a community to take care of my roads. I've never had a problem with a lender closing on any of those as a residential. It's just you got to really explain to them what's going on.
Sure.
You know, and since it's new construction, they'll let you know. I mean, if it's a condominium place, then they're going to have resale certificates, and they're going to have it listed as a condo, and they're going to ask you to put it on a Form 28 for condo.
Right, 28.
Yeah, but I would just say to your lender, it's not an association like a condo. I'm just paying to keep the parks maintained. It's more like a membership to a club that you're buying.
Sure.
Okay.
They're zoned as.
Well, I'm sure they're zoned single family. But lenders, you know, until they know the whole story, they're just going off what their formulas say. And if that lender can't grasp it, there's a lot of lenders here who do.
Yeah.
I mean, who is your lender?
So
I love hearing this story.
So right now, for this particular community we're looking at, and it's probably going to go until March at least, the lender is Absolute Mortgage. But I'm also working with, within the 30-day, the whole shenanigan credit check. There's Fairway.
Yeah, I've used them. They're good.
Dave Schultz.
They're good.
So
their office in Kirkland,
Yeah.
downtown.
Yeah.
As well as Bellevue.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, I just know about the Kirkland one. Yeah, they're known. They're good.
Yeah, so that's what he said. Exactly.
Oh, what I just said?
Well, whether there is a HOA fee of around 100 or more, that affects your interest rate by 0.25%. That's what he told me. So for us, it actually is kind of important.
Yeah. Oh, no, it is.
Yeah.
And that's a lender thing.
Yeah.
I don't control interest. If I did, I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be very rich. But again, I would say I would talk to Fairview as well as Absolute and get approval with both, and then compare them. See who's doing better for you.
Sure.
Because just because the lender on site says we'll give you a rebate back doesn't mean they're offering you the better deal.
No, absolutely, yeah. The other question I had, since you brought up the Form 21 and etc., that was very helpful because on MLS, I try to, whenever I have time, I'll go through the forms. It's 21 at least.
And the forms, when you go on Express Docs, I mean, I made all these videos to help you because Express Docs on some forms, they will have like a manual attached to it to the right.
Sure.
You just have to look, and it's really easy. I'm going to pull it up here for my viewing audience.
Yeah.
Do I still have one person?
And Peter Garrison, he said that he can hear you loud and clear. So.
Oh, okay. Anyway, if you're on here, if you look to the right, it'll have the manuals, and some of them have manuals, and you can actually click on the manuals, and it will help you filling out the forms as well.
Okay.
But they don't do them on all the forms, and usually it's because their other forms are associated with the main form. They're sub-forms.
21 does have a...
Yeah, 21 would, because it's a main form. But they probably don't have, like they have 22A. Okay, they do have all the sub ones like contingency. Basically, they have forms for the ones they think are more complicated, as opposed to the ones that they feel like you should be able to read and just understand it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And last question.
You have another question?
The office desk on the. So, like for writing transactions.
A transaction desk.
Transaction desk. I've noticed there's certain forms that are title alchemy, so I assume that's where alchemy.
Oh, don't.
Yeah, we
No,
can't use
no,
that.
no, 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 no.
Related, right?
All right, you guys, when you're in transaction desk and you're looking and you're opening it to start a new transaction and you're clicking templates,
Yeah, that's in there.
don't click templates.
Oh,
Because those are like, if it says alchemy in there, that's because those are templates that alchemy's made for their team.
yeah, I'm sure.
It
Yeah.
doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Because I had an agent go in and do an alchemy, and they're like, well, all these things are out of feeling like you said and all. And then when I tracked it down, I was like, well, that's because you use alchemy templates, and they're not set up to do what you want.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you never, unless you're on a team and they said, we created you a template,
Yeah. No.
or if I've created a template for you, there's no templates because I'm not going to create a template for you. Because I did, and it was a mess. And the reason why is because I created this template, and it auto-filled all these forms for you. But then agents were getting confused because they didn't understand that, well, half those forms that were just automatically thrown there, we were throwing in all the forms we suspected you might need.
I see.
Not that they all needed to be used, so we got rid of it because we decided it's better for the agents just to build their own offer.
Oh, okay.
And actually, it makes you think more, makes you a better agent. But yeah, don't go down the template. You just click on to the next thing. You just put the title of your transaction, click next, and then you build your own
Okay.
offer from there.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
Question. Done with all your questions?
There's actually a SEBA form in the.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm confused. So
SEBA's for commercial.
I absolutely I agree with you. And they on transaction desk they had those forms.
They have
us.
some of them, yeah.
Some.
Because you're licensed, you could do commercial.
Right.
But
But
if
we
you
have a
re-
KW commercial, so
Right.
are we allowed to use the SEBA forms?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
licensed-
KW commercial uses SEBA forms.
Right.
You're KW broker, but you're still using Northwest MLS forms.
I agree.
We do have on the intranet like 14 KW forms we made to address certain situations that the MLS forms have not.
Sure. Yeah.
That I would suggest you read those.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
no, you can do commercial. The only reason they put the SEBA forms there is to make it easy for agents who do, let's say, an occasional commercial deal, but they don't want to join SEBA to look in their MLS. Because
Yeah.
there's a whole separate commercial MLS.
Yeah.
And if you're serious about commercial, you would want to join them so that you could go on and see what's listed and all.
Sure.
Okay?
Thank you. Very
Well, Mr. Joby, how are you?
Good, how are you?
He's come to stump me with questions, I'm sure.
No, not at all. I actually figured sometimes I come in here and when I have nothing going on and there's good news.
Oh, okay.
Like, there's good information, I should say.
Yeah.
So, I have any stumping for you today.
What's your question now?
So this particular client of mine had submitted 3 or 4 offers and they didn't get, and so they've been doing pre-inspections over and over.
Mhm.
Their concern is that they have a little kid who's just allergic, and before putting an offer on a home, they don't want to keep spending on pre-inspection because they've lost out on 4 deals. And
Common.
yeah, and so in this market, so what they want to do is they want to actually make sure that there are no allergens or something wrong with the house that's going to impact their little
Yeah.
one. So they were wanting to do an inspection,
Mm-hmm.
go with a contingency, and not have the owners take care of any repairs or anything that might come out. So in
Mhm.
Form 35, there's a paragraph 3 for repairs,
Yeah.
or D.
On Form 35?
Yeah, on Form 35, the new one. There is a paragraph on D,
Mhm.
1D, which is specifically calling out for
Oh,
repairs.
you're on Form 22D.
Form 35
Oh, you're on 35. Okay.
for inspection.
D.
So on 1D,
Repairs, yeah.
yeah. So if they don't want the owners or the sellers to take care of repairs that come out of the inspection, would it make because I'm not going to be waiving inspection, but is it going to make sense for me to strike out that particular paragraph and send the offer?
So you are putting an inspection contingency in because they don't want
Because I don't want to lose out. At the same
Right.
time, I don't want my
So
clients
what
to
they're
lose on
saying is we want an inspection contingency. So if we don't like what we see, then we'll just walk away. But we're not going to do the inspection contingency to ask you, seller, to do any repairs.
Bingo.
I wouldn't put an inspection contingency in, because if you came in as a seller, or as a buyer and told me that, I would say get rid of it. And if I was a nice seller, I might allow you to put in a Form 34 and just says, buyer has the right within 3 days to come through and inspect the property. This in no way constitutes that they have a right to walk away and deserve their earnest money if they don't like the inspection. I would probably do something simple like that. What do you think, Alex?
This market, I wouldn't even put an inspection in there. I just
I wouldn't put one in.
We just saw a home this morning where the agent told me, yeah, I think we'll have 5-6 offers on it. 23 frickin' offers today.
Yeah.
On it. Went on over the weekend. It was listed. Funny enough, Hideka's group wrote an offer that went just over to 800. I walked in this morning. I hadn't seen it. I walked in this morning just to talk to my buyer. I said, it's going, in this market, it's breaking 900.
Oh, yeah.
And so,
that many offers.
And so I said, it is shattering 900.
Yeah.
Well, as of right now, we are no more than number one offer, and we went to 975.
So your buyer has to come to terms with reality.
Yeah.
It's because whenever anyone wants to write Mickey Mouse kind of things like this on inspections and all, you're just writing yourself out of the competition, period. My thing is I would first counsel them and say, well, what are the allergens you're worried about? Because, is it something that could be in carpet? Well, it sounds like wherever you buy it, if there's carpet, you're going to want to rip it out and put in wood floors. If they're worried about the paint, well, you can just plan on painting over everything with the correct paint you like. What kind of allergens?
Readjust their price point so they have enough money left to do any repairs they need.
Yeah, because there's also going to be multiple offers in that home.
Right, and I can tell you
already you're
already out.
Stopping yourself short.
You're already out.
You're out.
You're out already by doing that.
I was in Montana this weekend and I was riding skiing and I was riding up a chairlift and somebody says, hey, well, what do you think, Alex, right now about making an offer? And this was a $3.7 million home and the lowest price in this community, or 3.9, and hadn't even hit the market yet, and they have multiple offers in Montana. And I go, well, you know what? You're waiving everything. I go, you want it? I go, it's going to be an all-cash offer at 3.9. You need to close on their terms. Just literally leave it blank. I said, I'm not your agent, but I'd tell you what. Go see if you can sit with them face-to-face. If they're here today, make them an offer. And the problem is, today, man, it's dumb what we're waiving and what we're getting. I just was at a listing appointment and I said, you know what, here's the deal. I want people to do inspections. And his look at me was like, what? I'm like, no, I'm serious. From a liability standpoint, you want it too. But here's what's going to happen. We're going to get probably 5-6 offers on your home today, and they're going to all waive inspection. And so what would you like to do? I said, I personally would like to give them 1 day to do an inspection. I think we're crazy not to. I'm trying to reduce your liability because
but
in
what
this
if
market,
they offer an inspection they just had done?
That's fine too. I
would do that first.
Well, I mentioned that, but I said, I just want you to know I want to. Well, his argument to that was actually, well, then what if I find something on Form 17? I said, well, basically you have to understand.
This is part of your Form
17. This becomes part of your Form 17 disclosure.
Yeah, and we even have a form in the KW forms that says we're offering you this inspection. It's part of our Form 17.
Yeah, and we're walking away. Because here's the thing, in this market, they will turn around and sue you if they don't have it from the other side. But 23 offers, man, I'm taking the highest and best.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me, he goes, well, should I write a cover letter? And I looked at him, I went, no.
Doesn't matter right now.
I go, this is dumb.
Yeah.
You're going to be...
Yeah. You need to go back to your buyer. I'm just really curious. Have they even said what's his little allergies they're inspecting the house for?
It's a whole slew of things. I'm not sure that I understand the medical side of it, but they have concerns from paint, what the heater kind of throws out,
get
carpets, anything.
They
and everything
put on
like
special filters on the heater. I just think you need to have a serious conversation with them and go, what you're asking is because this is what you want because you like to do it this way because you want to save $1 here or here.
Yeah, I'm
But
missing
the reality is, people, it's just say, you know, Alex just told me the second offer I've heard in a week in the east side that's had over 20 offers. What makes them think that they're going to be able to do? I mean, here's my advice. When I lose a deal and I'm having a buyer who's just not getting what needs to be done, you need to call the seller, or not the seller, but the listing agent the next day. They're more willing to pick up a phone the next day than they are when you hear the news, unless they're talking to you. But I always say, hey, congratulations. What can you help me educate my buyer? What about my offer did not work for your seller, so I can help them be better on the next one? And I can always tell you what it's going to be because I already know, but I want to hear it. So I can go back to my client and I go, well, the winning offer waived all these things, and they went much higher than you. So we need to look at a lower price point to compete, and you need to consider waiving the things you're scared of. I mean, the other thing is like on waiving financing. I'm really upfront with my clients. I go, who's your lender? Because I want to make sure they have done a fully underwritten loan. So you had a conversation with them, so you know you're confident it's going to close, and the only thing you're waiting to hear is on an appraisal. Because I'm not going to take that responsibility of telling you to waive it. That's your decision. I will explain to you in the disclosures I gave you, because that's why we give you the disclosures. Be aware, here's your risk if you do waive this. But this is where the market is right now with sellers. I just know if you're with a lender who's out of state, who's not really looking at your loan, I think it's pretty risky to waive your financing. And I'm going to advise you, guess what? They probably aren't going to buy your offer because you have an out-of-state lender. They want to work with lenders they know in the state that close. So it's hard to be an agent sometimes and tell your client they're just not going to be able to do what they want. Or they need to be finding things that sat on the market that nobody wants to touch because they're overpriced or they are in horrible condition, which sounds like they wouldn't want. But
Sure, assuming that it was a market, not a seller's frenzy going on,
mm-hmm.
then would it make sense for us to strike this paragraph?
No.
Step in here.
If it wasn't a seller's market, you wouldn't scratch anything out. You just put in an inspection and go inspect.
Even if multiple offers.
I'm just telling you, in a multiple offer, people, it's you try to make all these little exceptions. When I have 5 deals in front of me, I'm looking at highest and best, but then I'm also looking at the details. And if I see someone who's crossed out a lot of paragraphs and is writing all this little extra languages around inspections, I just look and go, hey, this is a lot of trouble, because trust me, even though they say they want to ask for repairs, they still may ask for repairs. Because they'll just say, well, we didn't understand that the whole sewer line was blown and we're going to have to spend $30,000. So we're still going to walk on the inspection unless you fix the sewer. Well, you crossed out no repairs. Yeah, we did, but now that we know, we're putting in 34, and if we all agree, it doesn't matter that you crossed out repairs. As soon as you let someone inspect a home after your mutual, it's open season on what that buyer's going to do. So I don't care what you write to say we want to inspect, but we're not going to ask for anything. It's still a can of worms that's opened up for that seller, and there's still a variable that that buyer may still walk out. And there's so many loopholes.
So in this case, definitely I understand that, right? So in this case, we release the earnest money. The buyers wanted to make their offer competitive, so they released the earnest money. And then they found that the roof was shot.
What happens when we start discounting shit, buddy?
Examined the roof after everything was done, and so it was. They had no recourse, so that's when we compensated. So.
Right, but why did you? I wouldn't. I would have said, "Hey, I told you all the risks. Did you tell them all the risks?" Then you're a nice agent, but I'm sorry if I tell my client all the risks and they don't want to inspect when they had an opportunity to inspect. It's not my responsibility to buy them a new roof. I'm sorry, it's not. If you choose to, which you did, that's great because you
bought them a new roof.
You obviously felt like that was important to you for referrals and things. But the bottom line is, I'm very good about making sure they've signed off on all my disclosures and they know everything that they're waiving and what the risk is. But if they tell me they're going to waive inspection and they're not going to do an inspection, I'm going to have in writing, well, I want you to be aware of that you're buying this sight unseen and you're okay with that. You know, and some people are doing that because they're like, it's a fixer, we're planning to remodel the whole thing, we don't care because we know we're going to spend money no matter what.
They also absolutely said, we waived the inspection even after you telling me. And I said, guys, let's do it.
You just felt guilty.
No, I just wanted to be.
Well, no. If my buyer
Yeah.
says we want to waive it and not do an inspection, I'm like,
Yeah.
fine, let's do it. But I'm certainly going to make sure I email them and say, hey, I just want you to know that you could do a pre-inspection, you're choosing not to. Even if a seller has an inspection, I tell them, this is a seller inspection, it's not your inspection. Are you comfortable with that? You can still do an inspection. And who is it? Home Vibe does inspections? Yeah, and if it's a Home Vibe, you better be aware to tell them that's not a full inspection. Home Vibe just is a overview inspection is the best way I describe it. They just look at main things in the house, but they don't go as detailed.
Yeah, what just happened to him.
I just want to ask you a question if you've heard it. Sorry to interrupt.
No, this is time. This is your time to ask questions.
Dumbfounded right now. Have you heard of new construction having escalation clauses and then taking an offer that was less because the person who wrote it for less didn't have an agent?
Well, you know why?
Well, net they make more
They made
net.
6% commission, or no, they made 3%.
They saved 3%.
Yeah.
But have you actually heard of builders actually doing that? This is the first time I've ever seen someone actually say, we took less because they didn't have an agent. Now I have to tell my clients, hey, you would have been better off to write this offer without me.
No, what you do, no, I wouldn't tell them that at all.
So what do I tell them?
Just say
It's
we
going to
didn't
sell for
have the
less
best.
than what they escalated to.
You just say, well, in that situation, I get what you're saying. But by the time they do that, you might have them in another house because it's not going to close for a while.
This is ugly.
I mean,
I've never.
the bottom line is, first of all, you don't know who that client is. You know, that client who won the offer without an agent, it could be me, an agent writing an offer saying, you just don't have to pay me 3%.
True. But he told me they didn't have an agent.
Right, but here's what you need to explain to them. It still penciled out more than our offer, period. Because let's say whatever they offered plus that 3% savings is more money than you offered with an escalation.
Still just hard to convince them then to stay with an agent.
Well, it's a strategy, but just let them know it didn't do them any favors as to get them in the house. All it did is make them, basically, they're still paying, even though the house will show less than what they escalated, I mean, track it, because I'm willing to bet you if when it ends and you add 3%, it probably will be higher than what your escalation is. And if it isn't, then the builder, there's something else going on, because I don't know a builder who would take a lesser priced offer unless it penciled out with that 3% that it was actually more money than what you're doing.
So what he said was, we escalated to 1149, and they took an offer that escalated to 1145 with no agent.
Yeah, there's more money.
It's more money. But how do I tell my client, yeah, it sold for $4,000 less than what we were willing to escalate to?
I would just go to your client then and tell them the truth. The other offer offered more money. You don't have to go into great detail about it if you don't want to. He offered more money.
I think it's bad.
Put 3% on the
No, I agree.
1.45 and say that's where they went with the price, but you can explain how it's going to look on the MLS, but you don't know. See what I'm trying to tell you? You don't know if that buyer's an agent.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. And they could say that we'll just take the 3% and don't pay it.
Yeah, and here's the other thing I would say to your buyer. They're buying blind, because I can tell you they're probably going to do a walkthrough with the builder. They're not going to probably bring an inspector in to help build a punch list like you, so there's much more detail involved in it than just the 3%.
I'm just shocked right now.
But if you're worried your client's going to run away because of this 3%, then you need to look in the mirror and have more confidence about what you're offering, because you're a good agent and you are offering a lot. And the bottom line is the other offer went basically 3% minus $4,000 over what you offered, period.
Yeah.
And that's a big chunk of money. So
That's
basically, they offered about 20 grand more.
Yeah. Ugh. It's still hard. It's a tough pill to swallow.
I know. All right. How are you guys doing? Any more questions?
That was very helpful.
Good.
The entire session.
Are there any, have you been watching Facebook for questions? Because I haven't seen Facebook.
Yeah, I've been watching YouTube.
Well, I guess YouTube for
Yeah.
questions.
No questions, and 2 people are still watching.
Oh, okay.
Any questions, then let me ask any questions on.
God, the audience is so quiet out there in Cyberland.
No, this is also because when Greg does it, there's no video cast. Only when you do it, we've set everything
Oh, okay,
up.
I'll forget
So
it.
people,
So the question
Yes.
the question that just came in was actually a good question, you guys. And that is, Greg lost out on a multiple offer for new construction, and the builder called him and said, well, we're actually going with an offer that's less money because they didn't have
an agent.
an agent. And so he's upset, like, how can I explain to my client the other people won without an agent, without them thinking they don't need me? And first of all, we don't even know if this other buyer was an agent themselves, just saying I'll waive my commission is possible. But the bottom line is it has nothing to do with they didn't have an agent. It has to do with the other offer offered him more money, because when they were $4,000 apart in the escalation, he said, you got to figure, well, the other offer actually offered him 3% more, because all that commission gets added on top of what their offer is. So really, his client lost out because the other one offered more money. It had nothing to do with that he had no agent. And as far as buying new construction without an agent, some people do it. I think it's foolish, because they're not going to let you bring in an inspector, create a punch list, and really go over that house. They're just going to walk through the house in 40 minutes and say, yeah, we still need to, hook up the water on the refrigerator, and here's how to operate the heater, and there's instructions for the appliances. I mean, that's kind of a builder walkthrough there. They'll walk through the house with you, but they're not going to be an inspector looking at everything. So my advice back to him was, be a competent agent, that you're not concerned that they didn't have an agent, because you do a better job and you educate your client. Or just tell them the truth. The other one, for whatever reason, we don't know why, but that 3% is being given back to the builder. Because, like Greg doesn't know, it could very well have been another agent. And it's common practice for an agent buying a place for themselves to say, I'll waive my 3% commission because I want my mortgage to be less. All right? So I hope that explains to people.
Yep. They would have partially heard it, but no other questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, no other questions.
None?
Yep.
Well, then I'm signing off.
All right.
That was our class today.
Excellent.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. There was lots of golden nuggets. that
Okay.
you-
Good.
that Drew ramp up. So
Thank you.
that's great.
Thank you. We'll see you later.
You can.
And now I gotta
go.
go. Where do I go to sign off here?
Yeah.
This one.
Stop stream.